Hello and welcome. Today we are looking at the Hogs Extreme Airboard. This is like a small airboard quadcopter that also acts as a paraglider, and it has a real neat design to it. Comes with an action figure and it flies real neat and is a lot of fun to play with. So let's check it out. Now the quadcopter comes in this cool box here showing the Extreme Airboarder right there in the front. And as you can see, there's the controller, and it's from Hogs, and it's the Extreme Airboard, 2 ways to fly, and it's for ages 8+, and it transforms into a paraglider as well, and pretty neat design there from Hogs. And right here in the back, you have a little more information. You could see the hoverboard, the hoverboarder, and you can see the little paraglider set up there and the controller again. And right here on the side you can see its features here: engineered for safety, super tough frame, easy stunt button, and 2.4 gigahertz frequency. So pretty neat. So now let's open her up and see what's inside. Let's see here. Here. So I'll put this here. So here is the instruction manuals, and inside there's 1-800 card and some other paperwork here from Hogs. So that's pretty cool. Here is basically everything that comes inside the box. And let's take a look at each item here. First we have the quadcopter or hoverboard or drone or whatever you like to call it. Here it is. And then here we have the Extreme Airboard figure guy. And he is somewhat posable. His head turns and his arms turn, but his legs are static. But yeah, you can turn the upper body, basically the head and arms, so pretty cool. We'll put them right over here. And right here is the transmitter, pretty neat. And you use a pen to open it up right here, or any sharp object to just push in there and pull out the battery lid and change the batteries. Here is the paragliding attachment here. So it's like the parachute, and this is kind of made like of a plastic sheet, so it's pretty durable, pretty flexible. And here's also like a thin plastic wire that you can simply attach to the guy, and here it has these little sharp parts here that you can just simply connect to the figure and attach them. Here we have its micro USB charge cable. So this will allow you to charge the quadcopter. And then right here we have spare propellers, some propeller end caps, and a little tool to change the propeller. So that's essentially it there. So that's essentially the contents of the box. So now let's take a closer look at the quadcopter. Now taking a closer look at the quadcopter or airboarder here. This is a really cool design here, really neat. As you can see, it is a quadcopter because it does have the 4 brushed motors. But the way in which it's organized here is kind of different than your traditional quadcopter. As you can see, they're placed top to bottom right there. So it gives it this slender airboard design. So very cool. And right here it has its little plastic landing legs. And as you can see, this box down here basically houses the battery and the electronics. So pretty cool. You can see some wiring there, and here's the on-off switch. And then this gives you a sign as to which propellers go where with the A and B. And so it tells you, you know, this down one is a B and this one here on the top is an A. So that way when you change the propellers, you can place the proper propellers in the proper orientation, because not all the propellers are exactly the same orientation on here. So pretty cool here. And then the way the guy works is he basically snaps or slides on and off, as you can see here. And as mentioned earlier, his arms can move, his head moves around, but his legs are static, and it's rightfully so, because he has to attach right to the bottom here. As you can see, there are these little connections here where you can just lock his feet into place. So you just go like that and you lock both his feet into place there. So pretty cool. And you could pose him in certain ways and it shouldn't affect the flight performance. So you could have him, you know, posed like this and looking this way, and it will not affect the flight performance at all. So, you know, and it charges right here through this little port using the included USB charger. And so you would simply plug this part right in here and simply gas it up or charge it up. And you just plug this in, and as it's charging, you'll see a light on the charger, and then when it's fully charged, the light will go out. And of course, it has to be in the off position in order to charge right here. So you would slide it off or in the off position here to charge it. And then once it's fully charged, you'd simply turn it on right there. And it does take about maybe about half hour to charge, 40 minutes, and it gives it about a 5-minute flight time, 5 or 6 minutes. So not too bad. And to put this in the Paraglider configuration, now I know the packaging says transforms into you know, Paraglider, but it's not a dynamic thing where, you know, you'd push a button on a controller and it would transform into a Paraglider. You have to do it manually depending on which mode you want to fly prior to taking off. So right now we're in airboard mode, and so you would fly like this. And but if you wanted to set this up for the Paraglider mode, you'd have to put all the attachments on prior to takeoff. A couple of quick notes before I show you the Paraglider mode. If you're flying in airboard mode, this yellow strip here is the front part of the airboard, and if you're flying in the secondary mode, it would be where the charger is. Basically, if you fly in this mode, this would be the front, and if you fly in the sideways mode, this would be the front. Now, setting this up for the Paraglider mode is pretty straightforward. Basically, there are these little latches here on the side, so you would just connect it right here where there are these little openings. So you just simply attach it there, and then you attach it here. You'll have it like this, and then you would have these remaining holes here on the bottom here, or on the side here. So now we just slide that in there, and we connect this part as well. So now this is the basic setup for the Paraglider, as you can see, and then these little sharp parts that poke out are now in line with what is the front of the Paraglider, and then the part that's on the top here is the part with the design, and then you can see the white part is on the inside. So you can see how it's connected there, and then now you just simply want to connect these little sharp parts to the holes on the character. So you can see there's a hole right there on top of his backpack, and he has a couple of holes there on his hands, and then you just simply want to connect him to that. Now, as you can see, he's connected right there. It's connected to it. So here's how it looks. Pretty cool. And so he's strapped in there. Make sure that everything's securely fastened. And then basically you would just, hold it here and push the auto button right here. This is the auto takeoff button, and make sure that you're in the paraglider mode. And so when in paraglider mode, it's gonna fly in this direction. It's gonna fly kind of horizontally. So the front of the board would be this, and it would go forward this way, and backwards would be this way. And if you are in airboard mode and you switch it like that, the quadcopter will fly to the side like this. And this would be forward, this would be backwards. Now keep in mind that you can fly this in any configuration, and you don't necessarily have to follow the exact guidelines. So if you wanted to fly this in airboard mode while it's in paraglider setup, you could do that. It would be kind of awkward. It would kind of just go sideways, and then he'd be going forward like this. But you could do it. And if you wanted to fly it in paraglider mode while he's just on the airboard, you can also do that as well. So you can get creative here and fly it in whichever mode you would like to fly it. As I mentioned, you can, while he's on the airboard, you can have him fly forward this way and backwards this way, or you could have him fly in this mode. So you can get creative with how you use it. Now another note here, it doesn't seem to allow you to change modes while you're in the air. So briefly going over all the modes in the transmitter here real quick. This is the airboard mode, so it will fly in the sideways orientation. This is the paraglider mode, so it will fly in the horizontal orientation like that. This is the auto takeoff and auto land button. So if you have it, let's say in airboard mode, turn this on and it will lift up and start flying. And then if you're in the air quite a bit, you can push this and it will descend and land. And this is your left throttle stick and right rudder stick. And so you could provide altitude with this or land it manually like this. And this will allow you to either turn sideways or go forward, or if you want to yaw the quadcopter a bit, you can do that by moving the throttle stick to the left and right, and that will allow the quadcopter to have some yaw. Here are the directional trims, so if it's drifting in a certain direction, you can trim it out using these buttons to kind of even it off and keep it level and steady. Now I do believe it automatically calibrates if you initially turn it on and then you have it there and then you just bind to the controller just by turning it on. Initially you'll see some blinks indicating that it is calibrating, so you want to make sure you place that on the ground on a very flat surface without it moving. And then right here is the stunt button, and basically the stunt button doesn't do any flips or anything like that. It basically just does like a whirlwind or a twirl, and so it kind of just goes like a hurricane. It just goes around, or a tornado move. And you can use this button whether you're in paraglider mode or in hoverboard mode. So that's essentially it there. Now this does take a couple of AAA batteries. Yep, 2 AAA batteries. And that's essentially it for the controls. So very straightforward. A lot of fun, pretty cool. You can fly this indoors or out. This works off of 2.4 gigahertz, so it's not infrared. Small quadcopter that you can only fly indoors. You can actually even fly this outdoors, and it has a fairly decent range. Maybe about couple hundred feet, so not a bad range. You definitely don't want to fly it too far out, but and if you do lose connection with the controller shuts off or it goes too far out, it will just basically perform an auto land on its own. It's a fun little quadcopter. It does have a unique mode of flying, so It may take some getting used to if you're used to flying quadcopters and drones, but it's more or less the same kind of style. I have noticed that if you do fly it kind of fast and do a quick turn or a quick yaw, sometimes it does kind of wobble a bit and might lose balance and might even fall a couple of times. But in general, it flies pretty smooth and stable. And this is a very rugged frame, so when you're in paraglider mode, it doesn't quite land on its legs here since the guy is hanging off the bottom. So it does kind of have a rough landing when you do the paraglider mode, but that's okay because this is very sturdy and it could take quite a rough landing. So because it's very well built, so a lot of fun, pretty neat. So let's take it outside and take it for a little flight and see how it performs.